inside, as well as anyone who did a stretch between 1990 and 1997.
My mum was 68 when she was murdered, and she was in good health. She did everything for herself. She never asked, anybody for anything. She was fine. She was Mum.
Irene Grainey was murdered in her flat in Bermondsey, South London, in May 1990. 13 years later, the case remains unsolved.
It was to this ground floor council flat in Rotherhithe that police were called on Saturday evening. A neighbour living above Irene Grainey in Eugenia Road alerted them after worries that she hadn't been seen. Officers had to break windows.
It was one of a series of 8 very violent attacks against mainly older women in the London borough of Southwark. Maybe other attacks went unreported, but the known one started in 1988, went on for 18 months and culminated in Irene's murder. Victims said the rapist was then in his early 20s. He mostly went for ground floor flats and broke in after dark.
Take your clothes off, then I'll go. Be quiet. I won't be violent, but I don't want to hurt you.
When are you gone?
Be quiet.
I need a cup of tea. I'll make you a cup of tea. Please go. Please. Please. Please.
Be quiet.
Former detective Brian Bowden-Brown is from the Murder Review Group, bringing expertise to long-standing unsolved crimes.
It was originally dubbed the Southwark Rapist series. I came across it because I started to review the murder of Irene Grainey. I had no idea at the time that a series of rapes such as these were involved. It's probably the worst series of crimes that I've ever come across. I mean, the violence and the sexual assaults that these old ladies had to suffer is absolutely sickening.
Brian consulted Metropolitan Police crime analysts who look for patterns in behaviour that link crimes.
He asked us to have a look to see what we thought, whether we could confirm that we believed they were committed by the same offender, and also to see if we could come up with any new offences that may have been committed since. To do this, we searched on the language used before one of the offences, where the offender said that he was being chased by some men.
I've just come from the pub and there are 3 black men chasing me.
She found a strikingly similar phrase had been used in many of the attacks between 1988 and 1990. But even more remarkable, after a 7-year gap, it was used again in a quite separate violent burglary in 1997.
We were absolutely convinced it was the same man. The offences had happened within the same small area of Southwark. The victims were elderly and they had a ground floor property.
Oi, mate. Can you help me? 3 people are chasing me. Let me in.
I don't even know who you are. Get out. Ouch.
Minutes later, and next door, this time in the neighbour's bedroom.
Don't turn the lights on. I've got a knife.
What do you want?
Don't mess with me. I've just finished a 7 stretch.
What he did say was that he had just come out after serving a 7 stretch. Now, that could link in with the fact that we hadn't heard anything from him. He hadn't committed any offences since the murder of Irene Grainey in May of 1990. So it could very well be our man, and the fact that he hadn't done anything was that he was in prison.
I'll do you with this!
Oh, don't hurt him! Don't
We only
hurt him.
hint at the level of violence. The man was beaten with a metal towel rail, and the woman was almost strangled.
Give me the money. Come on.
Oh.
On this occasion, though the victims were badly beaten, they weren't sexually assaulted.
What worries me is that whilst we haven't had any recent offences like this that we believe he's responsible for, he's still out there. He hasn't been brought to justice for this, and we don't know when or if he's going to strike again.
When it first happened, I suppose I just wanted to get hold of him. I wanted to know why. Why pick on somebody that age? And, you know, obviously I'd like to have killed him. But as the years have gone on, I just feel that the man's really sick and he needs help. And somebody out there, he belongs to somebody, they must know. They've got to know. They've got to report it.
Apart from Irene's murder, at least one of the other victims nearly died, and certainly there seemed to be something like attempted murder again and again. It's really the sort of crime that creates revulsion among everyone, which is why we want help tonight from everyone, including those who might recognise the offender from a stretch in prison. This is Brian Bowden-Brown, retired formerly from the police force, but now taking on this in quite a big way. He could, the offender, have been bluffing about being in prison. On the other hand, it does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. He could be, so we've got to take it really with some caution. But on the other hand, it would add up. No offences since 1990. 1997, he comes back.
Now, if he'd been in for something like this, you would have found him, because you can go through the records. That would have been easy. So it's unlikely he has been convicted for a similar offence.
I wouldn't have thought so. I think this man is a burglar. I think predominantly that's what he does, and I think that's what he did in this particular case. He burgled the victims' homes beforehand. He recognised that there was an elderly lady living there on her own, possibly disabled, Zimmer frame, walking stick, knew she was an easy target, went back later on and subjected them to these dreadful attacks.
Now, there is some evidence that this is the same man who, in 1989, was caught burgling the Great American Wine Company in Southwark, in this area. There he was interrupted by a member of staff.
I'm going to be mugged by two black guys. They're chasing me.
Now, Brian, that's still an important part of your inquiry. Tell us why.
Well, it is, because it links in with some of the other offences. What I'm very interested in is tracing the office manager, a lady by the name of Patricia Peters. Now, I'd like to speak to her because I think that she can give me some very important information, not only about the white guy who she disturbed, but she also saw a black man standing outside, and she was convinced that he was the accomplice of the white man. Now, Patricia Peters, I should say, was born on the 1st of October 1936.
So you know all that, but no one knows where she is. And of course, at the time, this wasn't linked, and she would have no idea that it was linked.
No, not at all.
Now, what about the accomplice? Because the truth is, he probably has no idea it's linked. He might be appalled at what his mate was up to.
Well, exactly, and I'm hoping that he is watching, because I really do desperately need to speak to him.
And if he says, look, I'm very frightened of ringing up because you're now going to do me for this burglary or something like that.
He's got nothing to worry about, Nick, in
You're
relation to
immunity.
burglary. For that type of crime, for burglary, 13 years ago, yes, I am. What I'm interested in is catching the guy who committed these absolutely horrendous crimes on these elderly ladies.
They are so horrendous that the Metropolitan Police themselves have put up a £10,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the killer. If that was you, the accomplice, you've got that offer of immunity, you've got the offer of the reward. For heaven's sake, give us a call. And if there's any other way anyone else can help, call us here in the studio or call the incident room on 020 7321 7353.